Elder Barawak, Elder Yashia. Truth will set you free. Salvation and faith. Nazarene Hebrew Institute of Technology.
All right, that's this long introduction here. Good evening, everybody, ladies and gentlemen on YouTube and Facebook. We have very important guests, very important to our ministry and to the research that we're seeking out. Welcome to Nazarene Hebrew Institute of Technology. We are not affiliated with any camps or hate groups. I have a guest here by the name of Professor Tudor Parfitt family. He is a distinguished university professor and the founding director of the Center for Global Jewish Studies at Florida International University and academic director at the Jewish Museum of Florida, FIU. He is the corresponding fellow of Belgian Academia, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing this right, Academia Royale des Sciences, or ATRA, fellow of Royal Historical Society and emeritus professor of modern Jewish studies at the School of Oriental and African Studies in London. He has authored edited 31 books, presented in 7 documentaries for the BBC PBS channel, 4 in the History Channel. He features a section of the 60 Minutes and has appeared in many documentaries and has written extensively on different aspects of emerging Jewish communities. And the phenomenon of the new Jews is currently writing a book on the global phenomenon. His last major book was Hybrid Hate, Conflation of Anti-Black Racism and Anti-Semitism from the Renaissance to the Third Reich, New York, Oxford University Press, 2020. He's just finishing a book on the Holocaust in Slovakia. I hope I didn't butcher some of these words, Professor. But welcome, Mr. Parfitt, to our ministry, and we really humbly thank you for coming, sir.
Well, thank you very much, Pastor Barroway.
All right, so I want to start off saying I've read Hybrid Hate. My brother has too. I've read Jews, Black in America. I read Lost Tribes in Israel. And there's one more I can't remember that I wrote. But when I first seen you, I just want to let the audience know I seen you on the Nova channel because I'm a PBS watcher. So I seen you on PBS probably, I think it was 99 or 2000. And you were doing studies. And I've always been, before I made a bad decision in my life, I always wanted to be an anthropologist. I wanted to go and study African tribes and Indian tribes and different type of cultures. And unfortunately, I made some bad decisions younger and went the wrong way. And but I'm back on that path and of learning.
It's never too late. It's never too late.
Yes, sir. So I want to start off with a few questions. And if we have time, maybe the audience can, because we only have you to 8 o'clock. So we only have 2 hours. And so I'm going to, the most important question I want to start off with is the Limba. I've seen that you studied extensively on the Limba tribe in Africa. And for those who don't know Limba, can you explain to them in depth, like, you know, who they are and whatever? But my question is this, the DNA that you found, I seen in one of your studies where you said that they were from the Levitical priesthood. And I wanted to know what was the substance of what DNA did you use to match their DNA to come up with the analysis that they were from the Levitical priesthood of Aaron?
Right. It's a complex thing. It's going to take some time to explain it.
Okay.
So settle down, everybody.
Okay.
I'm going to first of all tell you about my involvement with them. So at that time, I was in the University of London. And a couple of things sort of happened around about the same time. First of all, the whole thing really started with the Ethiopian Jews. And in 1984, so it's a long time ago, Israel rescued the Ethiopian Jews from the refugee camps in the Sudan. They'd fled to the Sudan from Ethiopia. And I just happened to be there. I was asked to go and write a report on the Ethiopian Jews who were dying like flies in these dreadful camps. It was the year, if you recall, of the Great Famine, where millions of people died. So anyway, I went, and my going there coincided with something that was called the Operation Moses, which was the rescue of these poor people by Israel. And I wrote a book about it. And I guess 2 or 3 months later, I was invited to go to a university in South Africa and talk about this subject, the Ethiopian Jews and their rescue by Israel. So off I went to Johannesburg, and there was quite a big crowd of people there. And they were all white, quite prosperous Jewish people. But right at the back, there were some very poor-looking people who were black, but they were wearing, like you are, Minister Barroway, a sort of kippah. And they were shoeless and ragged, poor. Anyway, end of my lecture, I went across and I introduced myself to these people. and they told me that they were Lemba and that essentially they were the same as the Ethiopian Jews, and that they'd come from the north hundreds or thousands of years before. They weren't quite sure. And I'd never heard of anything like black Jews in Central Africa. So I kind of looked disbelieving. And they could see that I wasn't believing their story. So they invited me to go to their little villages up on the border with Zimbabwe that very weekend. So I went up there, and I spent the weekend staying in their grass huts and quite simple places. And over the 2 or 3 days, they persuaded me that their way of doing things was genuinely Semitic. They did all kinds of things that Semitic people do. They slaughter animals. They keep some kind of kashrut, something like the Jews, and so on, many, many different things. And I thought this was fascinating. So this was, long, long time ago. But then they told me the basic story. They had a basic kind of story that had been passed down from father to son over many hundreds of years. And the basic story of the Lemba was this. And they used to chant it. We came from Senna. We crossed Pusela. We came to Africa. We rebuilt Senna. And then we broke the law of God and we ate mice, which are forbidden. And God then scattered us among the nations in Africa. So this was the bedrock of their oral tradition. And of course, I was fascinated, speculating about where Senna might be and what it was, and where's Pusela? How did they get to Africa? When did this happen? How truthful was it? Was this really historical or was this mythical? And at about this time, I was still in Africa. I met the spiritual head of the Lemba people, who was a man by the name of Professor Mativa. He was the vice chancellor of an African university in what was then Venda. And we became good friends for many, many years. We were extremely close. And he said, we don't know where we're from, really, just somewhere in the north. But there are 2 things that I would like you to do. I'd like you to find out where Senna is. I'd like you to find out where Pusela is. And I'd like you to find our lost drum, which we think is something like the Ark of the Covenant.
That's the Uma, right?
This is the Ngoma Lungundu.
Okay, all right.
Ngoma Lungundu. So, not a difficult task, right? We didn't know where it was. We didn't know where the Senna was. We didn't know where Pusela was. And I had not the foggiest idea. Anyway, I went back to London and saw my publisher. I told him this story. He said, wow, that's an interesting story. Go back and see if you can write a book about it. So I went back, and my idea was to try and follow the oral tradition of the Lemba across Africa, going from village to village and speaking to the old men and learning about where they came from and what their traditions really were and so on. And this journey took me about 6 months, and I walked a lot of it, and eventually had a very good understanding of what the religion of the Lemba used to be. And I got as far as the Indian Ocean on the coast of Tanzania, but I hadn't really solved the basic problem. Where was Senna? All of the clues that I had kind of run out. Where was Pasela? I still didn't know. Were they of Jewish origin? I had no idea. And where was the Ngoma Lungon? I didn't know. And anyway, I wrote my book. It did pretty well. It was translated into many different languages. And a few years later, I happened to be in the Yemen, and I was talking to a holy man, and I told him this story. I speak Arabic. And he said, right at the end of the Wadi Hadramaut, there is a place called Senna, and we have a tradition that years ago, there was a dam which made it possible to grow stuff, irrigation. And the dam broke, and the people who lived there went to Africa. Maybe that's your people. So off I went, jumped into a Land Rover, and off I went to the eastern end of the Hadramaut, where they hadn't really seen any outsiders for a very, very, very long time, decades. And I discovered some interesting stuff. One of the things was that the tribal names of the Lemba were the same, or substantially the same, as the tribal names of the people who lived in the small settlements around the ruins of Senna. So I discovered the ancient city anyway. And then a little while later, I had a good idea. But at this point, I must pause because I was doing something else at the same time back in London. And it was this, one day I was walking along the street, Gower Street, next to the University of London. I was talking to a friend of mine who's a geneticist. And he said to me, do you know what the Y chromosome is? I said, kind of, I've got a vague idea that I know what the Y chromosome is. And he said, well, Y chromosome is a chromosome that men have, but women don't have it. Men have the Y. And the only way of getting a Y chromosome is from your father. The only way that he can get a Y chromosome is from his father, and so on throughout history. And the Y chromosome, through its passage through the millennia, doesn't change, or it doesn't change very much. So we then started a conversation. I said, well, it works exactly the same way as the status of priesthood among the Jewish people. So how do you become a priest? You're a priest if your dad's a priest, if your father's a priest. He's a priest because his father's a priest. And he's a priest because his father's a priest. And it goes back in history forever until the beginning of that line. So we had the idea of putting these two things together. We're going to put these two things together, the Jewish priests and the Y chromosome. And what we did was to collect DNA from all over the world, but particularly in Israel. And anybody who self-defined as a priest, yeah, I'm a Cohen. The word, as you know, for priest in Hebrew is Cohen. So anybody who's a Cohen believes that he derives from the ancient Jewish priesthood. It doesn't seem possible, does it? 2,000 years later, that anybody living could possibly be descended from the Jewish priesthood. But we thought that we'd put it to the test. We got thousands of cases of DNA. And we were looking at this very specific issue on the Y chromosome. What we wanted to do was to see if there was any kind of peculiarity on the Y chromosome of the people who self-identified as priests compared with the general population. And we discovered that there was. There was a particular length of DNA which came to be known as the Cohen modal haplotype, or the CMH, which was present at maybe 1% in the general population, but about 52% in the Cohen population. Now, this was a world-shattering discovery. It was amazing. These guys, their people had been raped and they'd been pillaged and they'd been kicked out and they'd been all over the place. But still, it seemed, and what the geneticists said, was that it implied that the priests were all derived from somebody who lived somewhere in North Arabia, which is to say Palestine, Israel, round about 3,000 years ago, which is precisely the time, as you know, of Moses. So this became a massive story. It was on the front page of all of the New York Times and blah, 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 all of these things. So this had happened when I got to Senna. So I had the idea there that what we ought to do is to collect DNA in the Yemen and then go back to Africa and collect DNA, not only from the Lemba, but from the surrounding tribes, the Bantu tribes from around there, and then make some comparisons, look at the place that they may have come from in Arabia, see what the differences are between them and the surrounding populations. And we discovered some stuff. First thing, yes, there was an absolute overlap between the people who lived in Arabia and them. So their remote origin was seen to be substantially Middle Eastern, with a strong probability that the area of Yemen was relevant. But on the line of one of the clans, but they claim to have 12 clans, probably it's 13. But anyway, on the line of the Buba clan, the geneticist discovered this very Cohen modal haplotype. Again, amazing. So that implied, similarly, that the remote ancestor of the people in the Buba clan was the same remote ancestor as the Kohanim throughout the world, the priests, Jewish priests throughout the world. And it seemed to be a very good indication that the Lemba had some Jewish ancestry. So that really is the story. This became a very famous story, hugely famous. It was mentioned in millions of articles, many films, and it's also started to act in a way as the bedrock for a number of groups throughout the world. I think of the Igbo, and I think of a lot of African American Hebrew groups.
Yes.
Who wanted to believe that they were of somehow of Jewish origin. Here was a proof, is what they thought, that it's possible to be both black and Hebrew. So it's had a huge impact.
All right.
I'll stop there.
Okay. Yashia, you can ask your next question.
Well, first, Professor Parfitt, we're just very pleased. We feel very fortunate that you graced us with your presence, your knowledge, and your insight on these matters, and that you're answering these questions for us.
That's my pleasure.
We're just very thankful for that, and thank you. And so I want to, because I read a few of your books, and I hold them dear, of course. But it's the last one you did is what I really found I wanted to ask a few questions for, not for me, but and for me as well, but for the audience that's listening, because we have been communicating with a lot of individuals everywhere, and there seems to be the notion in the public that the Israelites or the ancient Israelites that are called Black Jews, that there was no record or history of them on the western coasts of Africa. And so your book, The Forgotten Diaspora, Jewish Communities in West Africa and the Making of the Atlantic World by Peter Mark Jose da Silva Horta, and you have a portion in that book where you provided some breathtaking information, and I just had a couple of questions about the Petit Côté Jews. Can you give us a little purview of what that's all about?
Yeah. So you're right that some very important kind of figures said quite categorically that there were never any Jews living in West Africa. Well, I proved that to be wrong. And
of course,
the first group is to be found, or was to be found, in Senegal, and that's where the Petite Côte is. It's just a coastline above the river Senegal. And how did they get there? They got there because, as you know, first of all, in 1492, the Jews of Spain were given the option of conversion or expulsion, and some of them converted, some of them were expelled. And in 1497, the same thing happens in Portugal, basically the same thing. And so quite a lot of Jews, most of them went to places like Morocco, and then they went to the Ottoman Empire, and some managed to get to Amsterdam. A lot got to the Americas, probably quite early on, early 15th century. And we've got some very good evidence for that. But some went down to the west coast of Africa. And so we know that way into the 17th century, 18th century, there were small communities of Jews who they originally were Portuguese and Spanish Jews, and they'd intermarried with local women. And they were black. They were black by the middle of the 16th century. And I don't really know how long they persisted. We've got one or two voices chiming up in the 18th century saying that they'd come across Jews or people who seemed to be Jews. And in the last book, I gave quite a lot of information about the Jews in the important African kingdom of Loango. And there's every reason to suppose that the Jews of Loango arrived there. So, they were kicked out in the 15th century. And they, which is to say in the 1400s, right? And so then we get into the 1500s, that's the 16th century. By the 16th century, they were already settled. They became a separate community. They're quite wealthy. And they were there as an identifiable community until the arrival of the French colonists at the end of the 19th century. And then they kind of disappeared. And I think, but I'm not sure, I think they intermarried with an inland population on the edge of the rainforest and have kind of disappeared, but it needs more research. I need some young PhD student who's very intrepid to go to the rainforest of Gabon and see what he can find. Maybe you could go. You look like a tough guy. And so basically we know for a fact that there have been Jewish communities all the way along West Africa, and there were Jewish communities there before the beginning of transatlantic slavery. So the big question I'm always asked is, could any of these Jews have been taken to the Americas? Yes, of course. Slaves were taken, many slaves were taken through Loango. Mainly, however, the slaves came from the interior. They weren't, generally speaking, from the coastal areas. But it's possible that there were Jews who were taken as slaves to America. Another possibility of Jews being in America, of black people being Jews in America, is through Jews, white Jews, or they're not very white, it must be said. Portuguese and Spanish Jews were not particularly white, but they had black slaves, and some of these were converted, and we know many, many, many examples of that. And so you have a converted slave who then reproduces, and so his offspring are likely to be Jewish according to the Jewish law of halakha. Yeah. The problem is, no, I don't think it's a problem. But anyway, so the question that people ask is there any possibility that that black Jews came to the Americas as slaves? The answer is yes.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let me put a disclaimer out too. Mr. Parfitt about our ministry, so we'll know, because a lot of these, what they call the Hebrew movement, we, you heard me say at the beginning, we're not affiliated with any camps or hate groups. We have all different type of ethnicity in our community, in our ministry. It doesn't matter if you're white, green, black, purple. We don't care anything about that. All we care about is saving souls and trying to walk right in commandments, statutes, and laws of our Messiah, commonly called Jesus Christ, Yeshua, or Yahwashi, we say without the vowel points. I want to make that clear because there's a lot of different communities and these Hebrew Israelite camps that are teaching hate and this and that. We separate from that. We're just trying to learn. And the reason, the question I'm going to lead up to is because I have Igbo, 33% Igbo blood, and I have Bantu, 26% of Bantu. And actually, my father on his side, my grandfather was from Ghana. So I always thought in my heart that it was some that came over on the slave ships. What I want to ask, though, dealing with that, the Limba, did they give you, or any Bantu, or did they give you any type of migration patterns? Because I heard you say Sinner, but did they come from Israel and migrate into that area? What type of migration patterns did they give you?
Right, that's exactly it. So it's a shame we don't really have a map here. I don't know this. I don't know whether we could screen share or something. I'm not entirely sure if we can.
Yeah, if you got something, I can share it. Yeah.
Okay, well, let me just see if I can quickly find it.
Okay.
Take me a second.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Okay.
Just let me know when you need me to share it.
Yeah.
And please, ladies and gentlemen, hit the like button and share the video, please. This is historical for our ministry. Definitely a blessing to have Mr. Parfitt on here giving out some valuable information for us. And right now, we're trying to find something dealing with the migration patterns of the Limba.
Well, I think this one might be the one.
All right.
Well, wouldn't you believe it?
Oh, no, that's not it. Let me see. Did you share it yet?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
It can't open for some reason.
Oh, wow.
I'll
And
tell
this
you, all we need really is a. Oh dear.
This is the actual map you're saying from showing the migration pattern.
Yeah, but if we just had a map of Africa, that would be good, you know.
Okay, I don't know if I can. Oh, you got kicked out. He got kicked out. Give us a second, ladies and gentlemen. He got kicked out for a second. Oh man, I wish we can get this map. This is BI right here. Y'all hit the like button, share the video, family. Hit the like button, share the video. Waiting on Mr. Parfitt to come back in. He got kicked out. Well, y'all did hear him say for sure that he knows definitely that we was on them slave ships. And where people are saying not one was on a slave ship, not one.
And Western Africa, that's been the argument. We went in West. That's why I specifically asked that question. But I got some more though I want y'all to hear. Yeah. I read his books. So we're gonna.
That's right.
We're gonna dig into this.
We definitely
hit the like button.
Yeah, hit the like button, y'all. We definitely are not new to hearing Mr. Parfitt. We've been reading
Over
about
2 decades we've been studying him.
20-some years ago, man. And I hope he come back. Y'all bear with us. He got kicked out. So I don't know what's going on. Y'all bear with us. Let me go out. Yeah, see, I'll come back in and see if I can send him the link. Just in case. Here we go. Here we go.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah, here we are.
Were you able to find it? You wasn't able to get it?
Listen, I think it's going to be technically too difficult to get it onto the screen without losing you again.
Okay.
But, I can describe it.
Just briefly describe. Yes, that's fine.
So just imagine the vast continent of Africa, and right in the top, the northeast bit right at the top, you've got the Red Sea. And then on the other side of the Red Sea, you've got the Yemen and Saudi Arabia and so on. So Senna, we think, is probably there. And so they left there and then went down to Zanzibar off the coast of Tanzania, and then went a little bit further and until they got to a city called Sofala. I don't know whether you've heard of Sofala. It was a very, very important trading city. And when it was an African city, and when the Portuguese arrived there at the beginning of the 15th century, they saw this incredible city, and they said that cities like Rome and Venice and Genoa, these great Italian cities, they were nothing compared with the glories of Sofala. Unfortunately, the Portuguese attacked Sofala and completely destroyed it. And so we don't really know very much about it. There aren't any records left. Undoubtedly, there were libraries and goodness knows what in Sofala, but it was razed to the ground. And I've been there where it was, and I've seen a few bits of blackened stone sticking up out of the beach, and that's as much as there is. So they got to Sofala, and then they went inland, and they went up the Zambezi River, and there's still a town on the Zambezi River which is called Senna. And from this Senna, they went inland. That's the idea. That's the idea of the Lembas oral tradition. But what we do know, and it's now definitive, that, and we know when, around about 1400, Middle Eastern people, including some Jews, entered into Central Africa. There we are. And they probably had a significant relationship with the great monumental civilization, black civilization of Great Zimbabwe.
Okay. Very interesting. Yashia?
Your voice is gone. You have to put your mic on.
Sorry about that. I was just saying thank you again for showing up and providing this audience with all of this true scholarly information. Okay. And so I wanted to ask another question about that same book. On page 24, you had made some reference to Dutch ships dropping off Jews that had converted to Christianity at Petite Côte. And second thing is, you spoke of Jews converted to Christianity being brought back to the coast of Guinea by Flemish ships. So the question that I'm going to ask, and it's important to a lot, but then, you know, in the grand scheme of things, it's not really important, but it's just a form of verification, I guess, to a lot of us that are descendants from those people brought over out of Western Africa from some bloodline or another. Were those individuals, or do you have knowledge if those individuals that were dropped off by those ships, were they what we would, because I would like to call them dark Jews?
What was the last bit?
Well, I don't like referring to people or individuals as black and white. I just would like to ask if those individuals that were dropped off by the Dutch and Flemish ships in Western Africa, if they were dark Jews.
Oh, dark Jews. Yeah, to be honest, I mean, in a way, all Jews are dark Jews in the ideas of the time. You know, if you read the stuff I've written in the first 4 or 5 chapters of Hybrid Hate,
yeah, I read
you can see that you know, Europeans considered Jews to be black or dark, so they were all considered to be dark or black. It depends where you're coming from. You know, if you look at the different colors throughout Africa, it's ridiculous to think they're all the same color. And, you know, some are black, but if you go to the East Coast, you know, if you go to the Swahili-speaking areas of Kenya or Tanzania or Mozambique, the people on the coast are not very black. They're Bantu people, but they're quite light-skinned. And there are many groups throughout Africa which are lighter skinned. In Ethiopia, you know, there are 4 or 5 different words for black, and you know, the most obvious one, if you say that to a Amhara or indeed to an Ethiopian Jew, they'd be very offended if you called them by that word, because that word basically means slave. It's, you know, so they don't consider themselves to be black. You know, so we call them black Jews, but they don't consider themselves to be black Jews. They consider themselves maybe to be Jews. The Amhara consider themselves to be Christian. Well, they are Christians. But it's, you know, so the colors of Africa are very, very, very mixed, very different. And so, I mean, I don't know what color the people that were dropped off. I can't remember the passage, to be honest. And I mean, I think, you know, the people who were dropped off in Gabon, they would have been dropped off probably by the Portuguese. And a very interesting thing, which I mentioned in that book, is that round about the time that the Portuguese were discovering that bit of Africa, you know, which is getting pretty much to the bottom of the continent, when they got there, they discovered that just north of the River Congo, there is a place that everybody called the Cape of the Jews. Now, I don't see why it would have been called the Cape of the Jews if there hadn't been any Jews there before the Portuguese got there. I mean,
But
it's
yeah. No, go ahead. Were you done? Okay. All right. So thank you for that, Mr. Parfitt. It's funny, because I heard you mention in some of your videos that some of the scholars that were doing these discoveries, especially prior to I think, correct me if I'm wrong, prior to the 18th century, some of them were biased. We don't want to play the race card, but some scholars wouldn't give their honest opinion sometimes in certain areas dealing with dark Jews or whatever the case may be. And it's sad though, because, for years, I've heard that there were, but no scholarly information. But the last 25 years, my brother and I, we've read a lot of old books where scholars were going and doing research over in Africa and different, like Spain and Portugal. So one of the questions I wanted to ask about Spain and Portugal, because I think it was a tribute to a Negro. I think I read that book. I think it was where they mentioned that some of the Jews in Spain and Portugal were not converts, and there's some scholars saying that all the Jews over there, whether they were slaves or whatever, they were converts. But I read a book where they were saying that's not the case, that all were converts.
Oh no, they weren't all converts. I know very well that. I mean, the case that Yashia mentioned, which is the area of the Petite Côte in Senegal, they were not converts.
Right.
They were
Yeah, I just had to ask it, and a friend of mine in the chat, that was one of my questions on the book. It's kind of funny because he asked me to ask that question, and I said I already had it. So it's good to hear that. That's definitely coming from you. And then there was I forget the scholar's name, but it was tribute to them.
We know for a fact that some of those communities were practicing Judaism for, we don't know exactly how long, but they were proper Jewish communities. They were not converts.
Thank you for that.
All right, this is definitely true in Gabon. So for a period of 400 years at least, closer to 400 years, there was a complete isolate. It was a community that had no connection with any other community anywhere in the world. They were completely cut off as far as we know, and they carried on practicing some form of Judaism. We don't know exactly what.
All right.
I think I need to mention one thing, because it's really at the it bedevils the subject. It makes the subject complex. So you sent me a sort of manuscript, which, among other things, it refers to an exhibition up the Niger River.
Whoa.
In the first part of the 19th century.
Mm-hmm.
And basically at this point, the African continent was not really known in the early part of the 19th century. The only bits that were known were the coastal areas, but the interior was not known. They hadn't gone up the rivers. It was too dangerous. The British decided to send a ship up the Niger. And hearing that they were going to go, some London rabbis wrote a letter in Hebrew and also in English to the Jews who lived there up the Niger River. And it's quite an elaborate letter hailing our brethren who live in these remote areas. God bless you and peace be with you, and so on. Please let us know how you are, how you are faring, what kind of books you read, what sort of practices you have, etc., etc. And people have made something of this as indicating that there were Jews living up the Niger River, which I don't think you can do. What is true is that in the first years of the 19th century and long before, it was commonly believed in Western Europe and in America, and indeed throughout the world, that the unknown people who lived in Central Africa were, among other things, Jews. They didn't know anything about them. They didn't know anything about them, but that's what they believed. And why did they believe this? Well, it all comes down to, legends about the lost tribes of Israel. And so there was one particular individual who is certainly very well known, or was very well known among the Jewish community, but also was quite well known in the non-Jewish community among people who were interested in such things as the population of Central Africa. And his name was Eldad of the tribe of Dan. Now, you've got Eldad of the tribe of Dan.
We have his book, the book Eldad the Danite.
Eldad the Danite, exactly. So if you read his book, it's very intriguing. We don't really know who he was. We don't know very much about him. There's been quite a lot of speculation. And he turns up in the 9th century in what is today Tunisia, and which was then called Ifriqiya. It was, part of the Muslim world already. And so he describes a community of Jewish people, the lost tribe living in Central Africa. And it's difficult to see why he was making it up. And he gave a lot of detail about the people that lived there, about their warlike qualities, about the kind of Talmud that they had, the sort of books that they read. There were some very remarkable features about this community. One of them was that no child ever died in the life of his parents. How wonderful. So it was a kind of paradise on earth, this place. And you know about Prester John. It was a parallel story to Prester John. Jews believed this fairly implicitly, that beyond the wall of Islam, which by now reigned over North Africa and Egypt and the Middle East and so on, if you went beyond that, further into Africa, you would find this warlike Jewish kingdom or kingdoms. So by the time you get to the 19th century and people are really, starting to have a great interest in discovering what really is in the interior Africa, what mysteries are there, People have been speculating for nearly 2,000 years about what's in the middle of Africa without really having any hard facts. And one of the assumptions was that at least some of the people living there were going to be Jews, Israelites. And so naturally, when the British sent an expedition up the Niger River, and the Jews hear about it, they obviously, assumed that this would, that this expedition was likely to bump into, some Jews. Christopher Columbus had exactly the same idea when he went across the Atlantic. He didn't know what was on the other side when he set off, but one population that he most certainly did think he was going to encounter was the Lost Tribes of Israel. He thought that he was going to East Asia because that's another place where the Lost Tribes were supposed to be. And he took along with him 2 converted, but only recently converted Jews as translators. And what were the languages that they had great mastery of? Arabic, Aramaic, and Hebrew. So he thought these would be the most useful languages.
It's funny. I don't want to stop you right there, Tudor. I thought that was a lie. I've heard that before, but I thought everyone was just saying it's a lie. That's amazing what you just said.
No, it's interesting, but it's true. Yeah.
Wow. You hear that, Yashia? Yeah. Translators, you're muted.
Well, I don't think he found any of these people, but I mean, the thing to pin down is that people thought it was
right. What he thought
it was part of the the general belief of the time in medieval Europe that the world beyond the area that people knew about, beyond the horizon, if you like, who were the people who live beyond the unknown horizon. They're Israelites. Both in Africa and elsewhere in the world.
Amazing. Yashia, you got the next one?
Oh yeah, I got another one. We got him here now. We got to pick his brain. He's got a lot to share. It's touching this Portuguese situation. I want to refer back to your first book that I read. This was many years ago. Black Jews in Africa and the Americas. Page 4. You mentioned Francois Maximilien Masson. You quoted something from him. He's a French writer and traveler. I'm sure from speaking with you, you have a meticulous memory, but I just want to freshen it up. It was stated on page 139 of his book, I guess, that the general supposition is that all Jews were black, although only the Portuguese Jews started off black. It's also a vulgar error, he wrote, that the Jews were all black, for this is only true of the Portuguese.
I remember that. I think it's fair to say, and we've got plenty of evidence, there's evidence there, there's a lot more evidence in hybrid hate, that the general belief in the medieval period was that black people and Jews were uniquely different. They weren't human in quite the same way as white Europeans, and that they were physiologically different, that they were physically different in different ways, and color was one of the things. By the time you get to the Nazi period, then it becomes a radical version of that, because from about the middle of the 19th century, a little bit earlier, there was a widespread belief among anthropologists and physical anthropologists. They're racist. I mean, you these days you would call them racist, right? Totally racist. But you have to think of it in terms of the beliefs of the time. And there was a general supposition that the blood of Jews was black, was the same as black blood. There was no essential difference between Jews and blacks.
Wow.
There's masses of evidence. There were people who didn't think that, but an awful lot of people did think that, and that became mainstream science for some period, particularly in America.
Wow.
I don't know whether you've come across that book. It's called um, the Jews are Negroes.
That's the name of the book?
Yeah, the Jews are Negroes.
Is this your book or?
No, it's the name of a book that was written by, white American.
Francois Misson,
Oh,
Maximilian Misson.
Masson. Okay.
No, it's not Misson. No, it's not that. It's not that. No, it's. I don't want to look anything up because I will lose you if I.
All right, but the name of the book is what now?
The name of the book is. It's either Negroes or Jews or Jews and Negroes. It's simply called that. Jews are Negroes. It's a big fat book, and
Okay.
it's written by a racist gentleman from from Mississippi, one of the southern states.
Okay.
It's worth looking at.
We read a lot, Mr.
Well,
Parfitt.
try and get hold of that. It's been reissued as a paperback. You can get it. You can get it online.
Okay.
It's a very, very interesting book. You'll find a lot of information. It's completely wrong. I'm not telling you that there's no sense to any of this.
Right.
It's all racist nonsense, you understand.
Right.
But
Yes.
racist nonsense has big impact, as you gentlemen are fully aware.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. So,
I mean, just to ask you a question, you told me something about your early life, and you had certain misfortunes.
yes.
Faced with the law.
Yes.
Now, do you think you would have had those same misfortunes if you hadn't been black?
Well, Mr. Parfitt, I still had the choice, even though I made bad decisions. I think I was over sentenced because of the race issue, because of the amount of time that they gave me. But the Lord ended up allowing that time to get reduced when Obama came in and changed the laws, the federal law guideline laws, and I got out early. And this was a long time ago. But so I don't want to, because I'm more spiritual now, so I don't want to just look at it as just the race. That does play a part. But if I didn't walk down that path and put myself in those situations, I wouldn't have went through it. But yes, I believe that was part of the reason of me being excessively sentenced. And same thing with my brother here. Yeah. So yeah, I appreciate that. So I wanted to ask another question. First, I want to say, man, it was amazing how you when they shot at you in that truck. A lot of people don't know, but that's an old video when you went to Africa and you had to drive through that barricade, and they were shooting at you. And then the guys, because I watched that video, I went back and watched it again, but I actually seen it a decade ago. But also that part where the guy was playing cards and he banged your hand and all that. I mean, you went through some stuff trying to find information out about the limber, man. But
well, I guess I was doing it for quite a while, and I was younger in those days.
So my question, real quick, the Ark of the Covenant. Now I've seen some art. I read some articles on it. I think you did. Did you do TED Talk on about the Ark as well?
Well, no, I think the TED Talk was more to do with it was more to do with the genetics of the lemon.
Okay, but it definitely, I seen the video of the Ark, and when you went to, I think it was Ethiopia, when they saying the Ethiopians had it.
Yeah, that's right. No, I mean that was the History Channel.
That's the History Channel, right? So now, the Ethiopians had me convinced the way they presented everything, but they didn't show it to you. But this is a two-part question, because I also remember saying that the Limba saying they had a replica of one, and Mugabe, the president, took it or something. So what I'm asking is, do you think either one of them actually had the Ark of the Covenant?
No.
Okay.
I'll tell you why. You know, I don't think that the identification of the Buba tribe as priests is nearly as robust as we thought it was 25 years ago. And okay, if you've got an object which works exactly in the same way as the Ark of the Covenant, it does the same thing, it has the same function, it goes before the people into war, it is capable of striking you dead, you know, flames are emitted from it and so on, all these things. And, you know, you find this object in a group of people whose great grandfather is Moses. You think, yeah, well, you've got to think about it. But as soon as that identification gets a bit on the wobbly side, then it's not quite so clear. However, you've still got a very, very interesting object. And it's a very interesting object. It's the oldest wooden object ever found in Africa, apparently. And I discovered it. And it's absolutely true that President Mugabe, at least that's what I was told, and it's still not been returned to the museum where it was sitting since the death of Mugabe. And the people I was in Harare just a few weeks ago, and people there, the Lemba there, don't know where the Ngoma Lungundu is. It's completely disappeared. But it's considered as a treasure of the state. Maybe it's in some central depository of, you know, national treasures, but, you know, usually that would be in a museum somewhere in most countries. Mm-hmm. But nobody knows where the object is. And of course, the Lemba are grieving because of the loss of their...
Right.
Of their great...
would that be the oldest artifact found in the world ever? I'm just curious of the time date.
No, let's not exaggerate. It's a wooden object.
Okay.
And it's dated to about 1300, something like that.
Okay.
And so if you look around Africa, there is no wooden object which is older than that.
You know, in Africa, okay.
Yeah. No. I mean, even in Egypt, there are plenty of objects.
Yeah, I was about to say, because I know Egypt has a lot. You know. Just curious, yeah.
Yeah, but in most places in Africa, it's pretty damp and humid, and wood kind of rots, right?
Right.
But up in Egypt, it's very dry and hot and sandy, and those kind of conditions preserve wood, which is the reason we have a lot of wooden objects from Egypt. Including some that look exactly like our idea of the Ark of the Covenant.
All right. Yes, yeah. You got another one?
Yes, sir. I definitely do. I'm going to get what we can get while we got Professor Parfitt on here and use all of this vast knowledge he's got. Page 4, Black Jews, Africa, and the Americas. You mentioned Sir William Brereton, and I wanted to apologize for misspeaking about that book too. I thought we were on the same train of thought about the Masoni quote, but you was talking about another book. So thank you for correcting me with that. In the quote, it says that English parliamentarian and soldier writer happened to visit a Sephardic synagogue in Amsterdam, where he commented that the Jews were very dark-skinned and lascivious, and they were most black. in Amsterdam, a synagogue?
Well, that is just the perception of, somebody at the time. We're talking the 17th century. Sir William Brereton, and he didn't particularly like Jews, I don't suppose. And he saw these Jews, and these Jews would have come from, they weren't Dutch. They would have come from Portugal, which is right in the south of Europe. And, people who live in the south of Europe, in southern Spain or southern France, come to that, southern Italy. If you go down to Sicily, the skin tone of the people is much, much, much darker than it is, let's say, in Finland or Denmark or Scotland or something. So that's what he's saying. He's saying he went there. Lascivious means that they like sex. They were into sex, and they were black. And these two things go together. Now, it's interesting that at the beginning of the 20th century, with the beginning of Nazism and all that, it was both the Jews and the blacks who, the blacks in the United States. One of the great fears the white population had was that black men were going to have sex with their women, with the white women, right? But that's the big white fear. And in Germany, the fear was that their white, German women would have sex with Jews. It was basically the same thing. It's the same thing. So both Jews and blacks are considered to be sexually lascivious and hyperactive, and probably, let's call it hyperactive.
Okay.
All right. So Professor, I know you mentioned to me, I sent you a letter about the Jewish Alliance, and you had mentioned to me, which I was kind of shocked about, that Rabbi Demoda Yohanatan was one of your students, and we had him on. We did an interview with him because I was amazed. I seen this video he did over in Africa and in Nigeria on the Igbo. And what I wanted to ask you, have you done any studies on Igbo, and also the letter, if you had time to read it? The conclusion of the Jewish courts coming to say that about the Igbo. And that guy he interviewed, I believe that Igbo African over there is an anthropologist as well. I forget his name. But have you done any studies yet outside of the Limba on any other tribes? Like, for
Yes,
instance,
I have. I've done a lot of work on the Igbo. And,
oh, wow. Okay.
So you know Remy Alona?
Yes, we had Remy on. Yes. Uh-huh.
Remy was my student. I
didn't know that.
Wow.
Remy and Demota.
Oh, wow.
Both of them were my students. I brought Remy over. I'll tell you, it's a nice story.
Yeah,
so
Remy's a good man.
Quite a few years ago, I think it was maybe 2010, something, maybe 2000, somewhere like that, about 15 years ago. And so Remy was in Nigeria. And he got very, 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 very sick. Terribly, terribly sick. And he was in some terrible hospital, And before that, he'd been a lawyer. And because he was so sick, first of all, his clients started drifting off, finding other lawyers. No money was coming in. Then his wife left. And there he was, all alone, no future. He thought he was going to die. But he's a man of great spirit, a remarkable man, really a remarkable man, great spirit. He wasn't going to give up. And he had a dream. His dream was to go to America and to study the history of his people, the Igbo, and particularly their Jewish history. So he'd written to various people in America, and he'd also written to me. And I guess it might have been in a couple of years later, 2012. By this time, he was really at his wit's end. I think his life was seeping away. And he received an email from me to say that I would give him a scholarship to come and do an MA at Florida International University. And that changed his life. And, you know, he was filled with the spirit, if you like. And he was filled with energy, and he came, he did his MA, he's gone on to do a PhD, which is satisfactorily defended. He's now a doctor. And it's an amazing story. So I'm very, very pleased to have helped him, and, you know, and all that. Now, the question of, you know, whether the Igbo are original Israelites is something which is very, very important to Remy Ilona and to many other Igbo people. And, you know, when it comes to religion, it's a question of faith, isn't it? You know, you don't really have much absolute scientific proof. I mean, you call yourself, you know, an institute of technology, but you'll know that, you know, religious knowledge is not the same as scientific knowledge, put it like that. And so with the Igbo, you know, it's part of a religious and part of a cultural idea, which I wouldn't want to denigrate or to undermine in any way. But if you asked me as a historian, quite apart from any issues of Igbo identity or what Igbo may believe, whether I, Tudor Parfitt, have got any evidence at all as a result of my studies that the Israelites got to West Africa 3,000 years ago or whatever, I would have to say no.
All right, gotcha. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
But I'm not going to say that Dr. Ilona or Dr. Demota are wrong, because their perspective is one that's colored by their religious affiliations.
Okay.
I think that's
thank
fair.
you for your honesty too. Yes, yeah.
Mm.
All right. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, again, I'm just astounded by some of the things that are coming out. And so, Professor Parfitt, I see that you have vast insight with of course, the Limba tribe. You've had dealings with the Igbo tribe. You know about the Falasha. Can you enlighten the audience as to any other groups or tribes in Africa that have a claim or a connection to ancient Israel in terms of them perhaps being a Black Jewish tribe hiding out over in Africa?
Well, you know, the truth is that there are dozens or maybe hundreds.
Oh, wow.
So if you look at my book, The Lost Tribes of Israel, I list quite a lot of them. I list quite a few of them in Black Jews in Africa and the Americas. And there are quite a lot I haven't listed. There are some which are listed in the book by Edith Bruder, Black Jews of Africa.
Right, right.
And she was also my PhD student at one point.
Oh, goodness. Oh, wow.
And so, you know, we've got, we and then there are many other books that look at it. So some of these things went on for quite a long time. South Africa is full of the Zulus, for instance, were for a long time considered to be Jews by the white people. Then that was internalized by them, and they started thinking of themselves as being Jews for one reason or another. The same is true of the Xhosa and many other groups throughout Africa. And I've got a kind of overall theory that that colonialism very often imposed a sort of Jewish identity upon you know, peoples that they didn't really understand. They didn't really understand other people's religious systems, and they kind of perceived things that they thought were similar to things in the Old Testament. And it's a whole thing, you know, it really is a whole thing. And it's for this reason that, you know, North American indigenous peoples and South American indigenous peoples were very often considered to be Jewish, the Incas and Aztecs, and, you know, many of the Indian tribes in the north, similarly, Aborigines you know, in Australia, or different peoples in Papua New Guinea, or in the Solomon Islands, or New Zealand, the Maori. You know, one way of trying to understand them and to explain them and to figure out where they came from and what they are and why they're doing whatever they're doing was to say, hey, these people look just like Israelites. It's a worldwide phenomenon.
All right. Yeah, my next question, Mr. Parfitt, in your studies anywhere, did you find any of these tribes that the claims of Jewish trait? Did you find any ancient Hebrew manuscripts? I mean, of course, not dating back to Israel time, but anything that was kind of old, as far as in Hebrew or Aramaic, from any of these studies that you did with these tribes?
Not very old, I don't think. No, you know, in sub-Saharan Africa, it's, you know, there's no tradition of literacy, so you wouldn't expect to find much in the way of documentation before colonialism, except on the coast. I think there probably are things to be found if, again, we go back to Gabon, and I should imagine that an assiduous scholar might, or an anthropologist might find something there eventually. I'm not sure. Of course, in Ethiopia, there are plenty of documentations and stuff, but not very much from the Lemba that I've ever seen. The drum is the only thing that I kind of have discovered, and yeah.
So I know. Let me ask one more thing, Yashia. You did mention that. Didn't you go back to the Limba and you're supposed to have some new evidence of something new or something?
Well, I did. I was there recently, and the genetics lab at University College London took the original DNA, which is always preserved, and they applied completely new techniques, because over the last 25 years, the science has changed, or rather the technology has changed. And so back in those days, you could only look really at the Y chromosome and what's called mitochondrial DNA, which is looking at women's DNA, and it works very much in the same way that the Y chromosome works. It goes from from daughter to mother and grandmother and so on along that line. But there's all the stuff in between. So, I mean, if I could just explain it like this. So there's me, and I've got my mother, and I've got my father. And they obviously had parents. And so I'm one, I go back to two, and then it goes to four, right, in a line. So it's going to be a mother and a father and a mother and a father. And then if you go back one line, it goes to eight, where the grandparents of all of the individuals concerned, or the parents of all those individuals. And then it goes to 16, and then it goes to 32, 64, 100, and whatever it is, 28, and so on. Now, if you look at the line of ancestors of 128 people who would be your great, great, great kind of parents, it's only number 1 and number 64 who you're directly related to as great, great, great grandparents. All of the other people in between have got something to do with your genome and who've contributed to your genome in exactly the same way, didn't show up in the old studies that were using the Y chromosome and mitochondrial DNA. So it's this kind of new capacity of being able to look at trillions of genetic facts, if you like, that has somewhat changed the way that they're now looking at the Lemba ancestry. And whereas it's still true that the potentially Jewish and Middle Eastern thing is there, but it seems to be somewhat wider, and I shouldn't really speak about it because the thing hasn't been published yet. But all I'm saying is, and I don't think they'd mind me saying this,
Right.
is that it's a different technique. It's much more sophisticated, and but it also becomes more diffuse.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yes, yeah.
Yeah. And this is a book. Maybe I wouldn't be shocked if you were familiar with it, Professor Parfitt. It's called The Arabs by an individual by the name of Bertrand Thomas. And in this book, he supplies us with an allegation that the original inhabitants of Arabia in the ancient world were much, much darker than the modern inhabitants of that part of the world. Do you have any insight or anything to add to that?
I'm not that interested in skin color. It's such an unimportant part of one's overall makeup, isn't it? It's just skin color. But it's if you go there, and I spent a lot of my life traveling around those parts of the world, and the people there are pretty dark, I'd say. If you go to the Hadramaut, the Arabs, the Yemeni Arabs, many of them are very dark. There are a lot of people of African origin that live there and who've been there for hundreds or thousands of years. So, I know that there are lots of kind of Afrocentric ideas that, Jesus and Mary were black and Moses was black and everybody was black and the Greeks were black and all this sort of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think it's very interesting.
It came to mind because I tried to did some reading and some research on a group of people over in India. The name is slipping me now, but they were supposed to be not the Cochins,
the Bnei Israel.
Not even Bnei Israel. These are not even they from they are very, very dark. They look like Ethiopians, but they got straight hair. And so I know the climate has something to do with that, but it just made me doing the study. I was just wondering, well, how did they get over there? And the whole straight hair thing. And then they had different color eyes. And so I said, so this human race is more. We got more things in common ancestrally than a lot of people are willing to admit and acknowledge. And I just found that very interesting. And that's what made me ask the question about the.
Well, I think it would be probably the Bnei Israel. I don't think there's another group really. There are the Kochinis, and then there are the Malabar Jews, there are the black Jews of Cochin, and who allegedly started off as slaves. But I think that the darkest community, who are indeed black, would be the Bnei Israel. And quite what the origins of the Bnei Israel are, I'm not sure. People seem to think that they know, some experts, but I'm not really convinced. But yeah, I mean, it's what can I say? We know that Jews originally were from the eastern end of the Mediterranean, and the eastern end of the Mediterranean, or the southern, the southern lip of the Mediterranean Sea is Africa, and there's a land bridge between Palestine, Israel, and Africa. It's connected. It's not a different continent. You could see it as being the same continent. Obviously, there have been connections between Jews and Africans since the beginning of time.
Right. These people are just, the name just came to me, the Dravidians. They're called Dravidians people.
Dravidians?
Yes.
Oh, that's in India.
Right. That's what I was stating, that they were in India, Dravidians. It was just very interesting. You got something else?
Yeah. So, as we get closer to time, are you working on any other studies with any new tribes? And my other question to that's two parts. Another question to that: did the Limba even mention to you any oral traditions of what tribe, like Israelite tribe, they might say they descend from?
Well, no, I don't think I've really come across much along those lines. I can't really say that I have, other than the priesthood,
right,
which would be the
Levitical Levi,
Levi.
Yeah. Okay. And then what about, are you working on anything with any other African tribes in the future, or what is your future plan?
Yes, I am really. I'm writing a book now which is looking at the worldwide phenomenon of emerging Jewish communities in Central and South America and in Africa, all over the place. It's become a major phenomenon. There are millions of people worldwide who are embracing Judaism, practicing Judaism, and they're not of Jewish extraction in a genetic sense, although some of them claim that they are.
Right.
And the Igbo form part of this kind of worldwide phenomenon is fascinating. Tutsi as well, to an extent.
Oh, the Tootsies?
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
yeah.
Okay.
The idea of being an Israelite in the lake area is really quite. It's become very politicized. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yes, I mean there is a Jewish element to the Tutsi, and the
Okay.
Tutsi would say there's an anti-Semitic element to the Rwanda genocide.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I read that in books.
Yeah. Mhm.
And in the same way, Dr. Ilona argues that the Biafra genocide was similarly an act of sheer anti-Semitism.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think that they have any valid point about that? Though there could be some validity to that from those surrounding African tribes.
Well, there is some element to it. I mean, I think if you take the Tutsi and the Hutu, the Tutsi were sort of favored by the colonists, by Western colonists, because they were nomadic, noble, thin, looked rather aquiline. They weren't particularly negroid, if I can use that term, and so they were the favored sons of the colonists. And the colonists, from the word go, when they were first perceived, said that they thought that they were Israelites and they looked like Israelites and they behaved like Israelites. They almost certainly were Israelites. And so when eventually the other, tribes turned on them, which they did in the 90s, the Hutu turned on them in that terrible genocide, it was partly, 150 years of being made to feel inferior, which nobody likes.
Yeah.
It plays a role. So it wasn't exactly that they were killed because they were Israelites. It was that they were killed because people thought that they were better than the Hutu and the Tutsi as well thought that they were better, in part because they were perhaps of Israelite origin, not of local African origin.
Yeah. So, Mr. Parfitt, as far as like school, do you do online services for teaching your studies, or is it just you have to go directly to school?
No, we've got a lot of online courses, many online courses at FIU. You can find out what's available.
No, I'm saying, do you teach online courses?
I do I do an online course on the introduction to the religions of the world.
Oh, okay. So nothing about anthropology?
I haven't got an online course on this subject, unfortunately.
Oh, okay. Well, if you do, you email me because I'm interested in going around the world and studying identity, language, and culture. That's something we big on teaching here.
Where are you physically situated?
I live in Virginia, Windsor, Virginia.
Where is that?
I'm close to Norfolk, Virginia,
right.
Hampton, Virginia Beach, and Richmond.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm in a small town called Windsor, Virginia. I don't know if you've seen on the news where that sergeant, they pulled a sergeant over at the gas station, it went viral, and they maced him at the gas station because he wouldn't get out the car, a military sergeant. And it was on the news and all that. The police officers lost their job. It was a military sergeant. I lived right up the road from there. It was all on the news. Yeah, a couple of years ago. But yeah, that's Windsor, Virginia.
Okay.
Yeah. So but I'm originally from New Jersey.
Are you?
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I would love to do some online courses to learn about anthropology. I see a lot of people on social media, and but they say they self-proclaimed scholars, but they have not done the footwork and haven't went out to these different countries to study these people, but yet they write books and make claims. And I don't understand how can they do that without getting a proper education. You know.
I'm sure some of them are pretty good.
Oh yeah, I'm not discrediting that, but I think you should be taught first how to be an anthropologist than to just self-proclaim one of
Well,
you.
I mean, it's not that interesting. I don't know. It's not for everybody anyway. I mean, it's very theoretical, and so it's theory, and I don't think you're interested in that. So. Well, I'm not.
You're not. You're an
Well,
anthropologist, aren't you?
I'm a historian more than an anthropologist, really.
Oh, okay. I thought you were a part of it. I thought one of your studies was anthropology, so you're more
I've done
historian.
a bit.
You've done a bit, okay.
I
So,
know. Yeah.
so what classes do you actually teach? Just the
Well,
religion?
I was supposed to be doing a course this year on race and religion.
Right.
Doesn't look like it's going to happen. I sometimes do a course on the Arab-Israel conflict, and I sometimes teach Hebrew literature or Hebrew poetry, modern Hebrew poetry. I have taught Bible, Hebrew Bible,
Okay.
different things,
So,
changes year to
so
year.
do you have a religion or anything you subscribe to? Or
I'm a Christian.
oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay, okay. But you don't practice the Jewish customs of the holidays or nothing.
No, not particularly. I mean, I get invited by my Jewish friends to go to their
Right.
thing. But
Passover.
I'm
Yeah.
an Episcopalian, I'm an Anglican.
Oh, okay, okay. Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. You got anything else? We got about 7 minutes left, man. In the audience, you guys want to type in a quick question before we let Mr. Parfitt go? One of you guys got a question, please type it in real quick. Yes, you got anything else?
back to the those people deposited near the Senegal river over there, the Petit Cote. What are you familiar or aware of what tribal names they would have been associated with the African people over there? And what I mean is, we know about the Igbo, we know about the Falasha, we know about the Limba. How will we be able to identify any of them if they even are around over there today?
Well, I don't really think it's possible. It's just too long ago
Okay.
to try and connect any contemporary population with, the different tribes. After all, they disappeared from the face of the earth 2,700 years ago. And there's never been any proof that they had survived anywhere in the world. So the clear assumption is that they intermarried with the Assyrians. And of course, not all of them left, but there was so much intermarriage between the different tribes within Palestine. And I don't think tribal affinity probably stayed on being very important anyway. And then after the Roman debacle and the creation of the Jewish diaspora, the question of which tribe you were from was not important or preserved, and the genetics will not preserve it. At least at the present state of knowledge, I think I'm right in saying. Yeah. If we had, if somebody found a grave in Israel or somewhere in the area, and there were skeletons, and each of the skeletons was identifiable as a skeleton belonging to one of the Israelite tribes. And if we were allowed to extract DNA from it, it's possible to extract DNA from ancient remains. And so there is such a thing as ancient DNA. If the DNA was extracted from it, and if it was then possible to compare that DNA with with contemporary DNA, then maybe you might be able to say, oh yeah, look, such and such a Jewish individual has got something in common with the with the tribe of Dan, or with the tribe of whatever the other tribe was, Manasseh, or whatever it is. And but it's most unlikely that that's ever going to happen. That we'll find remains and ancient DNA which is designated, or which it's possible to demonstrate that it came from one of the tribes. And to find the whole set, it's probably impossible. I mean, it's never going to happen. But if it did happen, theoretically, yeah, maybe.
Awesome. Anybody else got one question real quick they want to type in the chat? You can. Let it go. We got 3-4 minutes left. And while we're waiting, Mr. Parfitt, I want to definitely humbly, man, thank you for your honesty and for your information that you shared with us. It was a long time coming. I've been telling my brother, we got to get him on here. And I was glad. At first, I thought I was, so many people hacking pages. I thought I was talking to somebody else. I couldn't believe I was actually communicating back and forth with you. To be honest, I was telling my wife, and I was like, I hope that's him, because I remember, I don't know if you know Harry Rosenberg.
Oh yes, I do.
Yeah, so I've been trying to get him on, Mr. Parfitt. Will you please tell him, please reach out to me. I would love to have him on. I thought I was talking to him one time, and I wasn't. And then I inboxed again, and he said he'd get back with me. And I know you guys sometimes are real busy, but I would definitely like you.
He's down here in Florida sometimes.
Oh yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, because I lived in Florida too. I lived in Lakeland, Florida at one time.
All right.
Yeah, right by Tampa. You're in Miami, right?
That's right.
Yeah. So, maybe when I retire, I'll come back to Florida. No state tax.
That's correct. Well, if
Yeah.
you do come down here, it'd be lovely to meet. Come along to the Jewish Museum, and I can show you around.
Yeah, that's right. They do got a Jewish museum down there. Yeah. That'll be awesome. Yeah. All right. So look like we didn't get no questions. Definitely again, Yashia, you got any final words? Mr.
I just want to. I'm blown away.
Yeah.
Some of the way he answered some of these questions with his integrity, his truthfulness, his experience is just. We just thankful that you came on here and gave us the opportunity to share your knowledge with all these people that's listening and that will listen to this video. And I hope Beryl Walk sometime in the future, not too far away, can set up something else so we can get you back on here for a few more questions. And just thank you, Dr. Parfitt, Professor Parfitt, for coming on here.
That's been a great pleasure.
I want to definitely put a good disclaimer out. We can care less about whether the race issue. A lot of these us Hebrew people that believe and identify, claim. And at the end of the day, that's not the most important thing. The end of the day is our faith in Christ and trying to live right and walk righteous. So this last question, this guy asked, can he expound on the black Jew? He spoke about the black Jews in Amsterdam already. Didn't you speak about? He's yeah. We
already answered
that, Brother Ryan, but he pretty much answered that in the totality of his questions. But definitely, thank you, Mr. Parfitt. It's 8:00, and we hope to see you again down the line, and we look forward to your new books coming out. And where can we find your new books?
Well, you have to wait until it's written.
Oh, okay. You're working on it right now. Okay. All right, but it'll be on Amazon, right? Like the rest of them?
Oh, it will, yeah.
Okay. All right, then.
Okay, guys. Well, thanks for having me on, and you keep well, and maybe I'll see you down here one of these days.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Have a blessed evening.
Okay.
Be safe, sir.
Thank you, and the same to you. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All right, y'all. Well,
Brother Ryan, I specifically asked him about Amsterdam. He answered that in detail.
He answered. It's on tape, Brother Ryan. It's on tape. His answer about Amsterdam is definitely on video. While we still live, Brother Ryan, he answered two things that I remember when me and you was over there in Bahrain, and Kofi was saying all of them was converts. He cleared that up quick. He said it's for a fact that they weren't. So over in Spain and Portugal, he's saying, I remember Kobe saying they were slaves and they were converts. So I'm glad we got that question on record, and a lot more of the questions. Yashia, you look like you got kicked out. But we want to thank. I'm gonna let Yashia get back in. I don't know what is this thing doing. But we want to thank everybody for listening. Please hit the like button, y'all. Share the video. Please share the video. If you did not see the beginning of this video, I suggest you go back. He answered a lot of questions that we needed to know. And what I have the respect for him about is because he did the footwork and been over there in these countries to do the research and study these people. So that's more important than somebody ain't never been out of America and start voicing their opinion about stuff and they haven't studied the Hebrew Israelite culture. And for that man to say on record that he knows for a fact that all the original Jews were dark-skinned people, that was really powerful for me because it really didn't matter to me whether it was. And he also mentioned that he believes that there were original Jews on the slave ships, which we've been saying forever. Of course, we can't say the whole ship, but we know for sure that they were on there. He also mentioned that Christopher Columbus had Hebrew translators with him on a thing, and the Aramaic and Arabic translators, and that Hebrew translator was a dark Jew. So, yeah, we want to thank everybody for listening. Please go back and hit the YouTube channel and the like button, share it, share the video, listen to the whole video. Please share it because we just want to get this information out. This guy, I couldn't believe he taught Remy and Rabbi Demoda, who we had on this platform as well. So for him to say that the information
Edith Bruder too,
Edith
Bruder as well. She got some.
Oh yeah, that's right. Edith Bruder, yup. Yeah. So yeah, definitely thank everybody for listening. And
can you let them know about next week for the Q&A? We'll pick back up.
So Thursday we'll pick back up with Q&A. That's what we normally do now on Thursday, biblical questions and Q&A. Tomorrow night will be our regular Hebrew class. Friday night, 8:30 p.m. we'll be going live. Saturday morning we'll be on our Hebrew class. Saturday morning, 11:30 a.m. Our Hebrew, we teach Hebrew without the vowel points. Saturday afternoon, 3:30, we'll be reading out of the book of Samuel. And 7:30 Eastern time, we'll be on Brother K. Judah's channel live. So we pray that everybody has definitely listened to this. And we pray that people took notes. And we got to get that book too, Yashia, he was talking about. Yeah, so definitely.
I took notes on it. I got it.
Yeah, definitely a great interview. Thank everybody for listening. And y'all have a blessed evening. Yashia, you got anything else?
Nah, man, I'm just you like that Bear Walk Rally. You get your man. There was a very I just want the people that have been arguing and the deceivers that said wasn't nobody in West Africa, wasn't no Jews. No.
Yeah.
So we just found out that was a lie.
Yeah, we did.
And we've been telling everybody it's more though. It's more gonna come out.
Now, if they want to say that, they need to make a video or write a book and show how that's false. Instead of just yelling out and spurring out your mouth. No, it's not true. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, all these Facebook and YouTube scholars. Yeah. All right, man. Huh?
Shalom.
Shalom, everybody. Shalom. Shalom.
Love y'all, Israel.
Yeah. Okay. Don't pay attention to what they say. They don't care about your life anyway. Put us in ships and brought us here to be slaves. They took our true identity away. Tell me, do you know who you are? Do you know? You have the bloodline of kings, like Malachi shining bright like the stars. You are his bride. Let me tell you a little about your history. Since our family tree became a mystery, some people can only trace it to their great-great-grandparents, which only started in this place. But what about before we came to America? Before the boats and the chains was impairing us. Before Africa, when we was in our land, speaking the language as a people we can understand. See, they really never tell us that we Hebrew, because the blood of the Messiah in our people. They got the world thinking it's them, no, they fake Jews. The Ashkenazis in our land, they full of hate too. Yeshua said it the best, I listened like a child. Jerusalem should be trodden down by the Gentiles. I heard it clear, and I know that it's God's will, because the prophecy he spoke had to be fulfilled. Don't pay attention to what they say. They don't care about your life anyway. Put us in ships and brought us here to be slaves. They took our true identity away. Tell me, do you know who you are? Do you know? You have the bloodline of kings, like Malachi shining bright like the stars. You are his bride. After the siege in Jerusalem, we fled west into Africa, living with ham flesh. Some of us taken by the Romans into slavery, where we were forced to worship idol pagan deities. Some of us fell by the sword in our own land. We tried to fight back without the Father's hand. As a result, we were dispersed among all nations, given the curses in the Torah, ending our patience. While in Africa, they started to afflict us, as in the days of old, like when in Egypt. Then we were further west, they called it Negro land, where famine ran high and it was full of sand. They couldn't understand why Judah wouldn't die out, cause Kumbaya Yahushua was in my mouth. And then the Europeans came with a resolution, bought us with guns and rum, started a revolution. Don't pay attention to what they say. They don't care about your life anyway. Put us in ships and brought us here to be slaves. They took our true identity away. Tell me, do you know who you are? Do you know? You have the bloodline of kings, like Malachi shining bright like the stars. You are his bride. Now we on a slave ship in the Atlantic Ocean, a yoke of iron on our neck, dead bodies floating, whipped and beat on our way to captivity. Nothing to eat, feeling weak, they died in they sleep. Can't enjoy my brother, can't enjoy my sister, because they sold this bondman to the highest bidder, serving a God who me nor my fathers know. Wouldn't cross stone Jesus, need I say more? Pagan day of worship, Honoring the sun, they call it Christianity. Look what we become. Israel, you got the blood of a mighty king. You can accomplish things beyond your wildest dreams. And all you have to do is turn to his law. To keep the commandments is the duty of us all. Live righteous, live right, continue doing well, and praise Yah. You are Yisrael. Don't pay attention to what they say. They don't care about your life anyway. Put us in ships and brought us here to be slaves. They took our true identity away. Tell me, do you know who you are? Do you know? You have the bloodline of kings, like Malachim shining bright like the stars. You are Yisrael.